Hello and welcome along to Factory Talk. Now, this is the first of two programs where we have two guests. It's the same two guests as we carry on. Now, in this first round, we're focusing on aerospace, we're focusing on technology and innovation. I'm delighted to say that we're joined by Gail Estaugh, who is Program Director at Aerospace Cornwall, and also joining us today, Caitlin Gould, who is one of the directors of Bluefruit Software, who are based in Redruth, which is also in Cornwall. And more on that a little bit later on. But first of all, Caitlin, if you could just tell us a bit more about yourself, about Bluefruit, and how you got to be there.
Hi, yeah, thank you for having me. So as you said, my name is Caitlin. I'm one of the directors at Bluefruit Software. Bluefruit Software is an embedded software company that's been based in Cornwall since it was founded 20 years ago. And we've been growing ever since. We now have over 70 people working in Cornwall, and that ranges from embedded software engineers to test engineers and quality analysts. And we work on a range of different projects around the world, so things from medical devices through to aerospace applications.
Perfect. Thank you for teeing that up so perfectly. Aerospace applications. So tell us, Gail, about Aerospace Cornwall and your relationship with Bluefruit.
So Aerospace Cornwall is a research, development and innovation fund, and that is administered by a team of 6 people. And the aim of that fund is to accelerate technology development and any products and services which could add value to the aerospace and space sectors. So we work with companies like Bluefruit to help them understand the market so that they can really develop those products and be absolutely fit for purpose. We co-fund their R&D investment, so we pay for 50% of those costs, and we help them exploit and commercialise that technology and get it ready for the market.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, Caitlin, what I want to talk about first of all is AI, in particular Edge AI. Tell me about that. What is it? How does it work? And what does it do?
Yeah, so it's an interesting topic and something that you kind of say AI, and it's a really big word and people know what that is, but Edge AI is a little bit less known. So as embedded engineers, we're regularly working within devices themselves and directly onto processors. And Edge AI is about taking AI processing or machine learning and putting it actually onto the devices themselves. So instead of processing the data in the cloud, like most AI applications, you're actually processing the data on the hardware or the device on a local level. And there's a lot of benefits to that. It means that you're actually able to, in a lot of instances, to collect the data on the device itself, process it on the device, and potentially even provide output on that device too, like a warning signal or something like that. It's new. The theory's been around for a long time, but people are just starting to really apply it. And it's an area that still requires a lot of research and development to figure out the practical applications of how to make it work on the shop floor, if you like.
Gail, is this the sort of technology that we're talking about that Aerospace Cornwall would be interested in?
Absolutely. And I think what's been really interesting about Bluefruit's journey is actually they've set off really open-minded about the application of that technology and which markets it might end up in. And I think we're really keen to support as much platform technology development as we can, and AI really meets that brief. And I think particularly as manufacturing is evolving, it's really good to think that this is going to future-proof a lot of tech. And it also plays really well to the regional strengths that we have in some of our high-tech sectors. For example, we've got an AI institute that's focused exclusively around the space sector and using space data. And I think some of the applications that Bluefruit will develop may well be appropriate in those markets.
So will the two of you be working together then to further develop this? And talk to me about the sort of industries. I mean, we obviously the aerospace industry, but the sort of industries, Caitlin, that you expect it to be used in and the applications that you expect it to be used in, without giving away too many trade secrets.
Yeah, that's fine. So in terms of working together, so we've actually been working together a lot on this. AI is something that as a company we've been interested in for a few years. We know that it's a huge kind of game changer for the technology sector, the same way that the Internet of Things kind of changed a lot. And so a few months ago, well, actually almost a year ago now, we decided to invest, or we were interested in investing a lot more time and dedication into doing some R&D work around developing AI solutions. And we went to the aerospace team, and we were able to work with them to get R&D funding. And that funding really enabled us to dedicate an entire team, including, as I said, testers and quality analysts, so that we weren't just coming up with kind of edge AI theory, we were actually making practical applications of it. We were testing it while we were doing it. We were building up compliance processes while we were doing it, which is really important if you think about where it might be used. It's one thing to do a bit of an edge AI play to see if you can gather data like people coughing or not coughing, which is where we started. It happened to be when COVID kicked off. But it's another thing if you're going to think about actually applying this technology into a heavily regulated industry, such as medical or aerospace or even manufacturing. So we wanted to make sure that as quickly as possible, our thinking and what we were developing was something that could be applied right away. And so that's kind of where we got started. In terms of the sectors, as Gail said, with the permission to do proper R&D, we've been able to explore that a lot. So we started by looking at adding sensors onto existing devices, like capturing data on a microphone. And that has applications that could be used in the industrial sector, in the medical sector, basically anywhere where being able to listen to faults is a benefit. But we quickly realized there's limitations with that. You get background noise, you have to add on additional requirements and hardware. So we started to explore ways to be able to do edge AI without sensors. And that's an area that we're looking at kind of building up some IP in. And that has big applications around things like motor control, which are in a lot of different sectors. So what's nice about kind of application is that it's something that can be used really widely.
Yeah. So, Gail, the minute you sort of heard or you found out about edge AI, was that something you immediately thought, yeah, this is something that our industry can really use?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been aware of AI and the potential for that in the aerospace sector for some time. And we've actually got about 4 or 5 projects that are using AI in different applications at the moment. I think what was interesting about this one was that edge AI gives an extra dimension, and we aren't funding any other projects in that area. And I think this really is going to be quite exciting. And Caitlin talked there about the development of some IP, and I think that's going to be really important, that as we can kind of explore some of those avenues and protect it, and then really go to town and open that up to as many different customer groups and as many different people as possible, you'll get even more insight about what other problems it might be able to solve. And for me, it's that nice mushroom effect. And I think some of the work that we were able to do in connecting Bluefruit with some of the universities, for example, so the University of Oxford have got a great AI team, and they were able to just sort of probe a little bit and maybe pull out some other opportunities. And we're really keen to develop the relationships between industry and academia, because that's where you get just different perspectives and some really interesting opportunities coming up.
Yeah, that is interesting. What about, sorry, carry on.
I was just going to say, it's worth saying as well within the space sector. So Gail mentioned, there's lots of different AI applications. What was really interesting too, when we're talking to people within aerospace, is some of the challenges you've got are around extreme remote environments, extreme working conditions, and also kind of security. And by taking the AI onto the device itself, it can help balance out some of those risks that can happen with more cloud-based AI. But then you still have the option of having those two things work really well together.
So is this something you can see having global applications? I mean, we've spoken about how you want to work with universities, with academia. What about looking outside of the UK? Do you think this is something where we can, again, perhaps, lead the world in this?
Absolutely. I mean, I think I was trying to think of a sector or an industry that edge AI wouldn't add value to, and I couldn't. It can be integrated throughout. I think what's going to be really interesting is trying to build those international consortia now to really kind of help these technologies evolve into really big opportunities. So at the moment, Bluefruit have tested 1 or 2 markets. I know there's some very interesting conversations that we can't go into too much detail about, but all sorts of sectors, whether they be medical, aerospace, I'm sure there are applications in automotive, mining, all sorts of opportunities. So what we're really looking for, I guess, is to make these technologies visible to people and make those collaboration opportunities visible so that people can join in and create those bigger groups and bigger pot of expertise. But I do know that quite a lot of the AI institutes across the UK are part of global networks, and we're really keen to pull on that and fly the flag for the UK.
Is this all part of the Industry 4, the next industrial revolution? I know earlier, Caitlin, you mentioned the Internet of Things. Is this all tied in with that?
Absolutely. So if you kind of look up a lot of the definitions around Industry 4, there is a lot of talk about being able to use emerging technology. So for the last few years, the real stress has been on kind of IIoT or industrial Internet of Things, but people are starting to wake up to the applications that AI can bring. I think up till now, there's been a bit of a hesitation about, can I actually apply it? Can I bring it onto my devices? Can I roll it out? Am I going to be able to afford it? Or is this just something for kind of Google to work on in the valley, if you like? And people are starting to realize actually you can bring it into that kind of industrial level. The projects that we're working on are very much in that industrial space, and actually looking at applying it to manufacturing and that type of thing. So it's definitely a part of that. And to your other question about the kind of internationalness of this, it's an international technology. It's not something that's only applicable in the UK. The clients we're working with sell their products globally. They are global customers. And so it's a technology that will make them leaders globally, which makes us kind of leaders globally as well. So it's really exciting. It's still emerging. We're finding that there's not really very many embedded companies who can do edge AI as well. And that's where, again, that R&D boost to be able to spend the time to properly invest into this. It's something a lot of people want to do, but haven't had a chance to do yet.
I want to talk briefly, Gail, about Britain's space industry. I think it is possibly surprisingly, people might not realise just how much we are world leaders in the space industry. Okay, the UK hasn't put a man on the moon, but the space industry is far more than that. It's about satellite technology. I was reading recently about Richard Branson, in fact, talking about using Nuki as one of the bases for his new systems to launch satellites into orbit. So Cornwall, which is where you're based, appears to be very much the heart of Britain's space industry.
Yeah, and although it does surprise people, we have got a really long heritage in space, and that was driven originally by the work that's happening down at Goonhilly Earth Station. So we may not have been involved in putting a man on the moon, but Goonhilly were actually the first people to broadcast that from their large antenna. So the Apollo mission was actually broadcast from Cornwall. And Goonhilly has continued to develop and invest in the really cutting edge teleport that is on that site. And more recently, there's been a huge upgrade to enable those antennae to communicate with deep space missions. So missions that go into the moon and Mars, and in the future beyond. And what that's really done is give us that credibility to think that we have got some heritage there that we should build on. And more recently, we were looking at the airport that we have at Newquay and said, why not turn this into a spaceport? It's got the perfect location to access polar orbits. It's got a really long runway, and it literally looks out over the sea. So Virgin Orbit and Richard Branson's team are looking to launch small satellites from that site next year. Small satellites being sub 500 kilograms. And that's going out from effectively a 747 with a rocket strapped under each wing, at the moment just under the left wing. And then that will deploy satellites into low Earth orbit, and that data will come back down and be processed at the Space Institute at Goonhilly. And we've got some really good universities with really strong data analytics capability, and we're really keen to use AI to process all of that data coming back, particularly because at a regional level we've got a strong focus on creating environmental intelligence. So we want to use that to do things like monitor climate change, monitor pollution incidents, make sure that we're using the Earth's resources as well as we possibly can. It's really exciting.
For youngsters today, in the UK, the dream of becoming a spaceman, or at least working in the space industry in the UK, is a dream that they can actually achieve.
Or a space woman, absolutely.
Or a space woman.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think it's such a sexy subject that it's not difficult to engage kids with this. But what's been really nice over the last sort of couple of years is the UK has now developed multiple space clusters. We are one of the world leading small satellite manufacturers. There's an immense amount of capability up in Scotland. So the eyes of the world are now looking to the UK, and we play a role in that in Cornwall. But I think what's really good about it is we have put an enormous investment at a national level into skills development, into STEM, into ensuring that those children have got careers to look forward to. And I'm really fortunate because I sit across aerospace and space, and quite a lot of those skills are transferable. People can start in one sector and pivot into the other relatively seamlessly. And I think it's given a sort of focus, particularly in the media, that actually working in space is cool, working in tech is cool, coding is cool, all of these things that have been quite a challenge. And I think what I've noticed locally is that has had a really interesting effect on the traditional manufacturing sector. So we were talking earlier about Bluefruit with embedded software capability. A lot of core manufacturers are coming to me and saying, well, should I be employing coders now to embed some of this back into our standard kit? Or should I work and collaborate with a software company? I think either of those is great, but it's bringing two sectors that potentially are being kept slightly separate together, and I think that's great.
Let's finish, if we can. We're just about out of time for this first programme. It's just the first one, but let's finish by just looking forward. I want to get both of you, just to look in your crystal balls. Let's look forward 10 years. How do you see AI, aerospace and Cornwall developing over the coming 10 years?
Okay, if I wave my magic wand, I can see a world. We've got a big focus at the moment on unmanned aerial vehicles. We're very lucky that we've got a very uncluttered airspace here and a low density population. So people are coming down here to test new technologies, and I think that's going to be a revolutionary breakthrough in the way that not only deliveries are transported, but also the way that we use infrastructure and move things around the world. So I'd like to see, multiple drones flying around as our sort of best friends. Like we might have a lawnmower in the shed, maybe we've got a drone as well, and that can go off and deliver what we need to deliver. I think from a space perspective, I do expect in 10 years we will have the Moon Village established, so that will have permanent residents on the moon. I myself in 10 years would quite like to be in space, so I'd be up for that. And I think the tech sector, actually what's happened recently has enabled people to work from home and use technology to their advantage. And I can see this becoming something that people embrace more and more. And as we see the introduction of robotics and AI into the home, I think that will have a really seismic shift on the way that society actually functions. And I don't know what that will look like, but I'm intrigued to find out.
Great, and I'll pick up on that a bit. So I think, there's some really interesting stuff coming around. I think we forget sometimes where we were 10 years ago versus where we are now. So I have a feeling it'll probably be like that in 10 years' time. We'll forget that we had a world where we didn't have AI embedded into our kind of everyday lives and helping us to make better decisions. There's a lot of anti-utopian things around AI. I'd like to embrace the kind of positivity and the opportunities it might bring to be able to have more efficient, safer, more economical, potentially more environmentally friendly processes. So if we can use AI to improve what we're doing and how we're running things, it could have a really positive global impact. For example, reducing waste, and especially around reducing energy waste. So I think there's a lot of really positive benefits to it if we can get it right and we focus it on the energy in the right direction. I think in terms of Gail's point of the future and kind of inspiration, I think we'll find more and more jobs that just appear that we never even considered before as well. You know, when we go out, and both Gail go out and talk to kids a lot about kind of future careers, one of the things I say to them is you'll probably be doing a job we never even heard of, because new careers are being created constantly in the technology and in the engineering space. And as the technology advances, the careers, the opportunities and the applications will continue to advance as well.
Brilliant. Gail,
and I think what I'm excited
Caitlin,
about is
go on, final word, Gail. Yeah.
So I was going to say, what I'm really looking forward to is I genuinely believe that those jobs and those careers are going to be more fulfilling because we'll have actually used technology to do the mundane, more monotonous tasks, which should free up our time to solve some of the really challenging problems to alleviate suffering. And I think that's going to give people an enormous sense of fulfillment in their careers.
Well, Gail and Caitlin, it's been really interesting. Thank you so much, the two of you. It's lovely to talk to you. And we're picking up in the next programme on your location because we're going to talk about Cornwall. It's been really interesting to find out just how much technology is going on in the county. So in the next Factory Talk, I'll be joined again by Caitlin and Gail, and we'll be looking at Cornwall and the future for one of the most beautiful parts of the UK. So we'll see you then. Bye-bye.